Going boys and girls, today we are going to be talking about the state of the reptile market. This includes various topics of, is there actually a crash right now? How bad is there a crash if there is? And what you should be doing during this time. Then of course lastly, number 4, my unbiasedly view on why there really is no market crash, it's absolutely fake news, and why you should be buying my crested geckos right now. Let's get into it. Obviously, when we're talking about this topic, just like you've seen with the other people that have talked about this topic, there is going to be some bias going on in it, just because of the fact that, like everyone else, I am a breeder, and we make money doing these things. While I don't make my full income, I do make income selling geckos, so I don't necessarily want to tell you guys it's gloom and doom, the end of the world, never buy another gecko, because that means old Dakota's not making money. However, it does also give, there's a pro and a con, I guess. Number 2 is going to be a unique insight into exactly what's going on. You can see the buyer's perspective on and on. Of course, there'll be many different experiences. However, there's a unique insight with the seller's experience, and we'll talk about that today. Alright, boys and girls, it's all fake news. Head on down to Dakota Blue Exotics, get yourself a crested gecko. Everything is okay. There is no market crash, remember. Topic number 1, is there a market crash going on right now? Yes. I don't think anyone can dispute that. Due to historical events that took place in 2020, leading to a shutdown of major corporations, outsourcing, backlogging, I don't know. I'm not an economist. I breed geckos for a living. Stuff hit the fan back in 2020, which caused a pile up, and now we are getting that pile up today. Or something like that. Simplify what's going on, because that's the only way I can do it, because I don't know the scientific version of it. Stuff is more expensive, a lot more expensive than it used to be, and we're all still making the same money, which means we ain't buying the things that we used to be buying. While of course many of us absolutely love this hobby, love the reptiles we get, so on and so forth, at the end of the day, it is a luxury, not a need, not a necessity. So when that comes into fact, less and less people are gonna buy these wants and luxuries when they can't afford stuff like, you know, groceries and rent. A place to live. Interesting thing that I've noticed in this is the reptile market kind of had a, there was a bit of a lag there. In my opinion, we really took a hard crash back in like the 2022 to 2023 is when stuff really started getting rough. However, personally, I didn't see a decline in sales until late 2023 to 2024. That's when sales, like, it was kind of like, you know, we're going like this and we're going a little bit like that. And then like all of a sudden in the fall, it was like, I found that a little interesting. Though it is just my personal experience, that is just something that I have found. In my opinion, here's how things kind of went from being okay to kind of hitting the fan. The gears and cogs each go one at a time to really result in, well, what's going on right now. Personally over here, I'm okay with holding geckos. I have the space to hold geckos. I had a game plan in mind if something like this would happen where I am able to hold geckos for a prolonged period of time. However, when we're talking about the big guys up here, not someone like me that just breeds a couple of hundred a year, the guys that breed thousands to 10,000s of geckos a year, reptiles a year, the issue becomes is their facility is not meant to hold gecko. It is meant for a certain percentage of those animals to be leaving the facility, not leaving room for holdbacks when inevitably market crashes like this happen. What happens with these big guys is they need to get these animals out of their facility because they do not have the room to hold this many, which results in massive, and I mean absolutely astronomical sales. I was seeing stuff like Altitude Exotic, 80% off their geckos. A fan of mine, this is how we got our 100% het exanthic tiger Dalmatian, was because he paid for it as a gift for me because it was a 900 gecko that was listed for like $123 that day. Absolutely crazy. This causes a bit of a butterfly effect. So you have these large guys basically giving geckos away for free for any way, shape, or reason, but we just know they're selling at astronomically low prices that the medium to smaller breeder cannot keep up with. While I do breed quite a few, again, a couple of hundred, I do not have the profit margins to be giving away geckos for $60, $80 for adult geckos, when the fact is I got electricity bills to pay, I got the food to pay, everything and so forth that goes into the care and breeding of these animals. You got these medium guys that are trying to build their way up, trying to get going into this hobby, maybe in for a couple of years, 3, 4, whatever, or all of a sudden hit with this giant rock of animals that were selling for $100, $200, now selling for $40 to $60. The bills are getting harder and harder to pay to keep up with it, and inevitably inevitably they are going to burn out, not have a good time, and eventually sell their collection due to either stress, financial reasons, or they were just in it for the money in the beginning, and now they realize that they're not making any more money, they're just selling the animals to go on to. Multiple variables go into this, of course. For whatever reason these guys are doing it, it creates a pileup of sorts in the market. Demand starts shrinking more and more because less and less people are able to purchase these things. Like I said before, a luxury, the supply begins skyrocketing up while the prices for those animals start going lower and lower as well. This creates a hard situation for the middle guys such as myself because we are getting hit on two fronts. We've got babies for this season being sold at astronomically low prices, giant sales being done every so often to try to get their stock out of there, while the other guys are getting rid of their ready-to-breed stuff, which if you were wanting to breed, they're more likely to go to. All creates a bad time for people like me during this market crash. This specific crash is also very interesting because of what took place in 2020. That was, of course, what we talked about in last time's video, the COVID keepers, the people that started getting into the hobby. During 2020 and the lockdown over here in the States, I don't know about everywhere else because I don't live everywhere else. Jermaine, people were at home, people wanted a new hobby, people that were doing the hobby maybe were laid off for work, getting those sweet, sweet COVID checks because let's be honest, we were all making so much money during that time. They began buying geckos in large quantities for a lot of money. It was a great time to be a breeder in 2020. You could not keep your stock in. I sold out within 15 minutes of listing stuff and I was selling them for prices that I never thought I'd be able to do. While this is happening, we have stuff like the Cappuccino Project start taking off, the combinations of Lily Whites, the Frappuccinos, and then of course the Xanthic stuff going off. Korea starts really getting invested in this and buying mass quantities of this stuff. Money that was coming in for specifically crested geckos and everywhere else in the reptile hobby was massive. It was insane. However, then it stopped. Korea got enough of our stuff. We started coming out with stuff with super caps, potentially having deformations, which made this cappuccino thing that was going up and up in sales all of a sudden crash due to those health reasons. And all in all, for all those variables combined, it leads us to, well, where we are today. This is pretty doom-pilled, I would say. You're probably thinking to yourself, okay, there is a market crash. We shouldn't be getting animals. Like, is this the end of the reptile hobby? What seems to be going on, Dakota? And well, I mean, yeah, there is a market crash, but it's not the first time there's been a market crash with this stuff, and it definitely won't be the last. Of course, I can't speak personally on the multiple market crashes throughout this time because I haven't been doing this for 30, 40, 50 years. I've been doing it as a little bit of a hobby back in like 2016, 17, something like that, and then started breeding and creating DBCB exotics, otherwise known as Dakota Blue exotics, back in 2019. It means this is the first hard knock life old Dakota is dealing with, but it wasn't the first time this has happened. Pretty much sum up, if there is a large economical crash during our time in the United States, that every market, including reptiles, is going to suffer. We can go back to the 07? The housing market crash, where living situations become harder and harder to come by and we can't afford our living standards, therefore once again luxuries are getting taken out and no geckos are being bought. I think that's what, I dropped out of high school to breed geckos for a living. I'm not, history isn't really up to date. Pretty much to sum up the last two sections, it's going to be, is there a market crash? Yes, there definitely is one. Sales are going down. A lot of people such as myself aren't really selling that much, and the people that are the bigger, you know, corporate level, whatever you want to call them, the pillars of this community have definitely seen a slowdown in sales pretty drastically. However, it is not the end of the reptile hobby. This does not mean that the market is going to crash forever, because this isn't the first time this has happened. This won't be the last time this has happened. To think of it as like a buildup of traffic, right? When you're on the highway, someone cuts you off or they brake too hard, which causes the guy behind him to brake hard, which causes the other guys behind him to brake hard, and so on and so forth. You get this slowdown in traffic in this specific area. The highway is the timeline of the hobby. In this specific area, there is a slowdown what's going on. However, it's not going to remain forever, and eventually it's going to pick back up. Of course, is going to be that it can't be this bad forever, right? It can't. We can't keep living like this. I mean, things have to stop. I mean, whether it's going to be that it just naturally gets better, we naturally make more money, or a complete revolution is taking place while we create a coup for the government to take over and start creating an anarchy society. In whatever case it happens, things have to pick up eventually. Right? Again, all the short-term people, these small box people are going to think, I'm not making money right now, I gotta get out of this, no, I'm done. We're not buying anything, the market's bad, there's no point to it. However, if you're thinking in the long game, the big picture side of things, this is the perfect time to be buying reptiles. What do you think? Dakota, come on, you're just saying this because you got a lot of geckos right behind you and you need to start moving them, so you're gonna start falsifying everyone, you know, giving them false hope that they should be buying at these low prices when people can't afford to. Yes, if you can't afford to purchase a reptile right now, don't purchase a reptile right now. If you don't got gecko money because you need to spend money on your bills, this isn't a time for you. You just gotta keep pushing on and making through. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, or whatever the boomers say. However, if you are a person that has a little bit of income left over, this is a perfect time to buy. And I'm not just saying this to sell stuff, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. You guys know about the Tokay stuff, that is going on. We've got the new Paradox, the Candy Dot. We're getting some Diablo stuff in, some Het Green Galaxy stuff in, more Diablo stuff coming in, more Candy Dot stuff going in. We have a lot of Tokays coming very soon. I've been buying as much as I can, putting myself in a very financially strained situation because I know this won't be the place forever. And when I come out of this, I'm gonna have animals where before I would be spending 2, 3, 4 for a shipment like this. What did we get? 7, 9 Tokays? Probably well over $10,000 for this one, only be spending a couple of grand. So while I'm going to struggle right now, once everything eventually evens itself out, I'm going to have geckos that are worth a lot of money that I did not spend nearly as much money on. Does this mean old Dakota's gotta go back to Lego my Egos and just some ramen for a couple of months? Well, sure, but that's a risk I'm willing to take. We gamble over here at Dakota Blue Exotics. Most of the time it doesn't work out, but I got a good feeling. I got a plan, and this one's gonna go through. Which vendor, I always got a plan. They usually end in failure. I'm just hoping this one works itself out. Part as an opportunity, instead of just simply a market crash, I'm able to be doing two things. Number one, I've not halted my breeding like some of these guys, and number two, I have been buying geckos at an exorbitant rate as much as I can at this point in time. Prices, of course, are at an all-time low, which means I can get stuff very cheap, very easily. And while yes, this year is of course going to be rough, I'm going to be having to work 2 to 3 times as hard because I'm going to have 2 to 3 times as many available geckos to be feeding, taking care of, so on and so forth. This does mean while this year is going to be rough for me, potentially 2025, 2026, when the market eventually evens out, I'm going to have a bunch of ready-to-breed adult geckos worth quite a bit of money instead of just babies at this time, which also leads to the fact that everyone else is halting their breeding, which means I'm gonna have some of the only ready-to-breed adults on a small scale. I won't be like the only guy doing this, but there'll definitely be a step up where there'll be less of adult animals because of everyone halting during this time. Putting myself in a very stressful situation now so it can pay off later. It's really what I'm all about over here. Struggle now, reap the benefits later. Later has yet to come, unfortunately. To wrap it up for the point of this video, yes, times are tough right now. Should you just be selling all your geckos and getting out while you can when you invested $2, $3, $4, $5,000, only making maybe a grand back from it? No. That's a really stupid thing to do. If you don't have the parameters in place like me to be able to hold back a lot of stuff and be able to house all this stuff as it gets older and older, then no, you shouldn't be breeding right now. You should just be holding back until things even out. And if you got the extra side cash available, investing has never been a better time. As always, it's just like the stock market, people. You don't buy the stocks. This is why I didn't buy a cappuccino until the very end, and I still messed up. I could have saved more money. I did not buy a cappuccino when the market was super high on them because that's silly, because it's inevitably going to drop. I waited until it dropped and then I got it. However, I didn't plan for the super cap to have a health issue which made it crash even further. So I could have waited a little longer and got it for a little cheaper, but in spending, you know, 5, 6, whatever grand on a ready-to-breed cappuccino, I spent 2. Well, boys and girls, I hope this eased your mind or made it extremely worse. I hope I had some sort of reaction. I guess that's what I'm trying to say at the end of the day. If you guys want to check out some more videos we have right now talking about the project that we are doing, of course, Project 500, there's a playlist right there, or the last update, it's right here. As always, thank you so much for taking the time in your day to follow us over here at Dakota Blue Exotics. I'll see you guys next time, but until then, goodbye.